we're certainly envious of the people that are more successful than us, but for those that are in that position, maybe that are at some level of success, there is this level of imposter syndrome that happens. I've certainly felt it before. And so it's this other side of the equation where some people have this opposite effect where they achieve a certain level of success, but they don't feel like they deserved it. And they almost, it can be a very negative way to look at the world that way. How do you think this relates into this whole equation of what we're talking about in terms of envy?
Well, it's there are ways that happen. I've talked to a lot of people who tell me that, and I say, well, let's look at the actual facts here. Let's not get all carried away by this emotion that we have, which is a kind of a form of envy because we're comparing ourselves to others and we're feeling like we don't deserve what we have, right? That I don't really deserve the success I have. You know, it seems fake. And so the thing that you need to do in situations like that, and believe it or not, I actually had that feeling 20 years ago when my first book was very successful, because prior to that, I hadn't been very successful. I had been kind of, a bum. I worked in Hollywood, and my parents were beginning to wonder their 36-year-old son hasn't really achieved anything. And then suddenly I had the success, and I'm going, did I really deserve that? I mean, I'm still the same person. It doesn't, something feels awkward. So it's often with people who are in the first flush of success and they're not really sure about themselves. So in that sense, you want to be able to do what we talked about earlier and analyze that emotion and go back and see, first of all, in any kind of success in life, there's an element of luck. I had luck. It's not, and that doesn't mean that you don't deserve what you have, but it's good to recognize the factor of luck so you don't get a big head, which would be the opposite of the imposter syndrome, and think that you have the golden touch. But okay, so recognize that there might have been some element of luck, but there was also something that you did that you deserved it, that your actions actually led to this success, and analyze and try and cut the difference between what is real and what is fake, because there's so much hype in our culture and so many people are successful and they don't really seem to deserve it. It's mostly seems to be about marketing and and self-promotion. So it's hard to realize what's real and what's not real. But if you are 30 years old and you started a business and the business is doing really well, there's probably a reason for that. It probably is because you spend years in your 20s developing skill. Those skills are real, and you've developed experience, and you have some creative energy, and you put it into this task. And yes, other people have helped you, and yes, there's an element of luck. But give yourself a pat on the back and realize that probably a lot of it stems from actions that you've done, and that you're not really an imposter, you know? So it's more about analyzing why you're feeling that way. And I know I felt that way because the success seemed too sudden. And so that might be the root for a lot of people, And I know, for instance, it's weird because I've done this in consulting. I've noticed a lot more women tend to have that feeling than men do. I mean, men definitely have it. But women who are now suddenly, who are, thank God, finally having as much power as we are in being successful in all different businesses and affairs, they've not been socialized and brought up to feel like they are equals, even though they are completely are equals. They've been socialized to think that something is wrong with themselves, that they don't deserve their success. So I notice a lot of women tend to have that. And I go through a process of saying, well, it's not really coming from you, it's coming from the culture. And that's another element that goes into the imposter syndrome. So those would be sort of the things that I would go through.